Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your hosts are Bob Gibbons, founder of Riata Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm, and Stephen Neuner, founder and CEO of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. Bob and Stephen will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons and Stephen Neuner.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Stephen Neuner.
And this is Bob Gibbons, and we're here for yet another show, and this one's a little different because this is our third anniversary show.
Third anniversary, Bob.
Can you believe we've been on the air for 3 years? That's crazy that somebody would let us do this for three years.
iHeartMedia should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, they've only had responsibility for the last, 5 months or so, but anyway, well, we're excited about the show. We're going to talk about all kinds of things from the last 3 years, talk about guests that have been with us in the past, things we've learned, things we've implemented, all kinds of stuff. But I thought, Stephen, the thing we ought to start with more than anything is a huge thanks to the people that have helped us make this happen.
I think that's a great idea.
So
begin with gratitude.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't do this by ourselves. We've got a few people that help us out. So first and foremost is Fern Knable. So
Fern the Great.
She's our guest coordinator. She helps us keep the schedule going. She coordinates with our guests, make sure they get all the pre-interview information to us. She coordinates with the radio station for the times. I mean, she does a lot of stuff. She's incredibly important to this show.
Tolerates our ADD and our
changing
moving schedules.
Oh, that's the worst. But thank you, Fern. We love you and appreciate that. And,
very much.
Jan.
Yes.
Jan Gibbons, she's in my group.
Your lead investor.
Exactly. So she helps us with the podcast. She uploads all the podcasts, and she does a lot of stuff to help find guests. She's always reviewing all kinds of media and social, papers, and giving me ideas on people we ought to invite as guests. So we appreciate that, Jan. Thank you. Keep doing it.
You're amazing. Thank you for tolerating Bob and me.
Exactly. So who else do we have?
My better half is also a lead investor. I think I appreciate this is something that we do that is a bit of a passion project. Not surprising, I'm sure, to the audience. We don't make tons of money for doing this show.
Wait a minute, tons? We're still looking for that first one, first dollar.
So to my wife, Corey, who supports me in all things that I'm passionate and excited about, I'm super grateful for you and just your love and friendship and encouragement.
And then we have another Knabler.
Yeah.
Jessica Knable.
Yes.
So Jessica helps us with all the social media. She built the website. She uploads everything to YouTube and to the website, and so she's pretty critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's with us every week doing all kinds of stuff for us. So that's great. Then we have
you.
Mark Liberio. Mark is our video editor. So he's with his own company called Tetra Media Group, and so Mark takes the video and edits that, matches it up with audio from the radio station.
He makes us look good, which is a tough gig.
It is a tough thing. And then the last but not least, as far as I can remember, is Danny.
So
Danny's
Danny the man.
He was the guy that walked in front of the camera a second ago. And so Danny is our recording. Well, I don't even know what to call you.
The guru.
The recording guru.
The guru.
He also records all the Cowboys radio broadcasts.
We're big time, man.
Yeah, I mean, he figured he's done the Cowboys for years, so it's time to up his game a little bit and start working with us.
It's been the next level.
Exactly. So have I forgotten anybody?
Your team member that helps deliver gifts.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
My apologies. Christy McCampbell. So Christy works with us, and she handles all the delivery. So we give all of our guests a little thank you afterwards, which includes a framed photo of them with us. It's not perfect. If we weren't in it, it'd be better. But anyway, Christy does that, and meets the guests and says thank you and hand delivers that. So thank you, Christy.
I've never met you, but I appreciate you.
Well, you should. You'd love her. Everybody loves Christy, especially Christy. Well, so first topic, things that we thought we'd talk about today was over the last 3 years, who have been some of the more impactful guests that you can recall and why?
I got a few. They come to mind.
Okay.
One, and some of them are sound bites, and some of them are because I met them through the show. They've had an impact.
Okay.
So one, I've got to say, Don Smith.
Oh, yes.
And you've heard this before. I've talked about it, but I have a tendency to make the simple complicated, and I'm working on it to continuously try to change that habit. And so I can overcomplicate things and talk myself out of doing things, which is kind of the antithesis of being an entrepreneur. And so I remember talking to Don, and he was talking about implementing a new project, and it was really complicated, really complex. And I asked him like a question about it, because he was almost kind of flippant and telling me about it. It was just kind of like matter of fact. And I'm like, yeah, well, how'd you, how'd you get to making that decision, whatever. And he just shrugged his shoulder. He goes, it'll work or it won't. and it was just like a hammer over the head. Like,
don't overcomplicate it.
Like it'll work or it won't. And if it doesn't work, we'll move on. So I really appreciate it. I've thought about that many times when I'm wanting to bottleneck something to try to make it perfect.
Right.
It'll work or it won't, and we'll learn from what won't work. Sometimes just getting it done.
If it doesn't work, you try something else.
What about you?
Well, one of my favorite, most impactful guests was Charlie Tien. And Charlie has a company called Guru Focus.
Yes.
And the thing I loved about Charlie was he started a business that had absolutely nothing to do with any of his training. Of course, that's not uncommon. A lot of the people we talk to on the show are doing something that had nothing to do with their training. But Charlie was a physicist, a PhD in physics, and yet he starts a company that's all about investing.
Yeah, he's a telecom guy.
Yeah, telecom. He was doing all kinds of fiber optics kind of
engineering
stuff.
Yeah.
And and he was investing in those companies and failing miserably at that investing. And so he realized, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go learn from the best, the Warren Buffetts, the other folks. And so he called those people the gurus. And it was out of a personal need that he then started doing what he needed for himself.
Yeah.
And then he started sharing that with someone else, with a lot of other someone else's on the internet. And people just started sending him money.
Yeah.
Just to say thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing what you're doing. They started sending him money, and all of a sudden he realized, wait a minute, there's a business here. And now he's got over 400,000 subscribers to his content.
You know what my favorite part of Charlie was, though, as a guest?
What's that?
When you said, prove it, show me your portfolio. and
he did.
He did.
He did.
I was so uncomfortable when you did that, but I thought it was so cool that he did.
Well, he didn't do it on the air, but he
but
sent it to me by email later.
Yeah.
And it wasn't his whole portfolio. He just showed me, one area where he manages, and he
was solid.
His returns were, almost double what the average of the S&P 500 is. So I was pretty impressed.
Any others come to mind?
Oh, quite a few. Joe and Kate Lundgren, Cutting Edge Pediatric Therapy. They were one of our early guests.
Yes.
And, again, a personal need. They have two sons they're somewhere on the autism spectrum, and they weren't happy with the kind of services that they were getting for their sons through therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, et cetera, speech therapy. So, Kate had a degree in that, and so they were like, all right, we're going to do this ourselves. And so now they have locations in Allen, Texas, in Mansfield, in Katy, Texas. They have 3 locations. They just are opening up a brand new location up in Allen that's about 4 times the size of the one they had before. So, they're just killing it. And it all started because of a personal need that they had, again, that they then figured out a better way and shared that with other people that had the same need.
So speaking of sharing, and I don't believe it happened on the show, but Rick Sapio was also a guest that made a significant impact for me. We were talking, and he was just very intentional about everything. And so 2 new habits, 2 new things that came out of just meeting him and building that friendship a little bit was one, I don't know if you recall this, but he had a weekly date night with his wife.
Yes.
And do you remember the significance of it?
No.
Same day every week.
Yeah.
And I think they had 3 restaurants in it. They didn't even have to think about where they were going to go.
Yep.
So we haven't adopted the restaurant thing, but we have a weekly date night, and it's automatic. Like it's just we're running into it. We're going to do it, and that came out of that inspiration. And the second thing was I don't know if you recall. Do you remember his placemat?
I remember him talking about it, but I don't remember the content of it.
So literally, he's got this placemat they host and bring people in their household, and they have dinners and everything else, and they have this placemat of all these things he's learned through his journey of life that are on this placemat that he shares with his, guests and kids and their conversation topics at the dinner table. And so we had been doing some work at a Christian family camp we go to called Camp Pine Cove. On our core values and like what some of those things in our family, and so we had those on the wall, right? But the idea came from him really, and so now it's literally resides on a placemat. So it's like we're sitting and looking at it and reflecting on them, on a daily basis. So thank you, Rick.
Do you have one of those placemats for your 4-year-old?
Yeah, they're paper. They're disposable.
Okay,
they're beautiful.
Can you read it?
Yeah.
Well. Another one that came to my mind is Michael Engel. He's a very recent guest. He's the guy that was on Shark Tank with the Clean Sleep company. But the thing that really impressed me about him was the fact that he ran away from home at 14, and with hardly any money in his pocket, moved from Minneapolis to Dallas and started a concrete company. And he still has that concrete company. And it was just out of a desperation of need to have money, but he turned it into something that was really practical. It addressed a real need for other people, and then he wasn't satisfied with that. He created another company, and then another company. And he told us that he has a list of about 100 different ideas for making money, and then he prioritizes those. And so the top 9. He's actually seriously considering working on and implementing, and his goal is to start a new one every year.
Yeah.
And right now he's got 3 that are active and going. But anyway, so that was pretty amazing. He kind of wore me out, though. I was feeling very inadequate after talking to him.
Funny how that works. Actually, he energized me. So you put one of the other questions we were contemplating for the show today was most interesting reasons for starting a company. Yep. Well, I just thought I was inspired by the idea I'm going to start a company a year, right?
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so there's some things I'm going to take action on. They're not starting companies, but it was just like, gosh, man, like the energy of that ambition.
All right, well, let's pick that up on the other side. We'll be right back.
Stick around.
Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts. When you negotiate for that renewal option, why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. Welcome back. So, Stephen, you were starting to talk about most interesting reasons for starting a company in terms of the guests we've had. So go ahead and run with that.
Yeah, well, I talked about Michael Engel and the inspiration of him starting a company a year. You were talking about prioritizing his ideas. That was energizing to me. I love that energy and enthusiasm and someone that's just up to something in life like that and is committed. Another significant one to me that I was just impacted by was Chad Hauser, Cafe Momentum.
Love that story.
You want to share it?
Well, I mean, just that he saw a need and that there were all these kids coming out of the juvenile detention center, and the recidivism was like 85%.
Yep.
and he just had a burden on his heart to help these kids find a better way.
Yeah, and I mean, and he's doing it. And what's really cool about that too is like how doors open. That's one of the things that it's like you show up and you're just doing your best, and you never know where things are going to take you. Because he, if you recall, how he even kind of came up with the idea or met the kids to begin with. Do you?
No.
He was on the board of directors for the farmers market, and they were just trying to get people to the farmers market in Dallas, so they were going to have an ice cream making competition. And so someone asked him to go help with it, and so that's how he met the kids. And so literally that just like kind of very Forrest Gumpish. I mean, just kind of he's just bumping along, and then like literally his life gets changed, right?
Well, speaking of life-changing, Matt Monero was one of our guests once, and he has a company called Commercial Fleet Financing. And I found it interesting because he got moved down here from the Northeast by another company who then turned around and laid him off and decided they're not going to run this company in this area after all. And so all of a sudden he's, here, doesn't really know anybody, and he's got to figure out how to make a living.
Yeah.
And so you talk about scrappy. I mean, they provide financing for truckers, and heavy equipment and such. So he literally went to truck stops with his Suburban, parked it at the entrance and exit to the truck stop.
Right.
And he would open the back doors, and he had this specially made sign that would sort of slip over those doors when they were opened. And it said something about like, finance your truck here.
Oh my gosh.
And he would just sit there all day waiting for these truckers to come by and say, yeah, I need to refinance my truck, or I need to finance a new truck, or whatever. But it was just so scrappy. And, and it was out of such need. So, I just thought that was pretty awesome reason to start a company.
Yeah. One other for me is Chris English, English Insurance Group. He basically was in a Bible study with me and realized that this idiot can do it. I can start my own insurance agency too.
That's a good reason.
Just talking to Chris on the way over here, in fact. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, one other really two others for me real quick. Blake Shook, Desert Creek Honey.
Yeah.
He won a beekeeping kit when he was 12 years old.
How crazy is that?
And now probably, what was it, 15 years later, I want to say, he's still a young man.
Yeah.
But they've now got over $5 million in sales annually, and it's probably double that by now because we interviewed him quite a while ago. He's hired his older brother to be his president of his company, and I mean they have like 15 or 18 full-time employees, and they get up to like 40 or 50, peak season. So that was
stuff.
Amazing to me.
Guys.
And the other one really was another recent one, Michael Patton of Fetch. So Fetch is a package delivery system, but it's specifically for apartment buildings. Because I couldn't believe these apartment management companies were having to devote an entire person to do nothing but manage all the packages.
It's unbelievable.
Coming into there. I mean, but you think about it, how many people
Makes sense.
order from Amazon and other online retailers, and how many packages does that translate to?
A lot.
If they can just walk up and put it on your front door, that's one thing. But when you're in a gated apartment complex, you can't do that. So, he's solving that last mile delivery for those. And he just raised a bunch of money from venture money. He's getting ready to expand into Houston and other places. So that one was pretty cool, but it's because he was a resident and saw that himself that he realized that there was the need.
So let's talk funnies.
Funnies.
Jokes, mistakes.
My favorite funny is, we do that thing called a liner, where we kind of ask people to kind of poke fun out of us a little bit. And people come up with really creative ways of doing that. But my favorite is still the guy who, and I don't even remember who it was now.
How appropriate.
But the guy that was saying, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I'm with this company, and I just got finished recording the show with Bob, and he forgot your name.
That was funny.
And this was at the end of the show, after we'd been with this guy for 45 minutes.
Right.
And he forgot your name. I love that. I thought that was hilarious.
So funny, and he felt so bad, and it was just...
and we used it.
Yeah, and I was like, we have to use that. He's like, oh no, please, we got to use that's the funniest one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but my personal favorite, like hands down of all time, and I know you're tired of hearing about it, but we had a guest on, and we talked about Mr. Miyagi.
Oh no.
And Bob tried to play off like he knew who Mr. Miyagi was.
No, I was just trying to say, For those listeners who don't know,
Yeah.
explain who that is.
Right.
But you saw through that.
Yes, I saw through that. I've known you long enough to know you're full of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so anyway, I called him out on the air. That was probably kind of funny too, and we've had fun with it. I got Bob a gift on one of our anniversaries for it said "Sweep the Leg, Johnny" as a T-shirt, and I bought him all
whole
3
series.
Karate Kids. That's I'm sure wrapped in.
Those are safely in their cellophane wrapper to this date.
They're going to be a collector.
Yeah, if I can sell them, I will. But well, speaking of gifts, then you raised that, so I've got to mention that in the first 8 shows that we did, you wouldn't ever listen or watch any of them. We videotaped this, so you wouldn't watch or listen to it because you were so self-conscious because you didn't think you were any good at it.
Yeah.
And you weren't, and you still aren't, but you finally started watching some. So your first birthday after we started the show, I got you one of these little microphones that, it's like something, a
Sitting on my
paperweight you sit
desk.
on your desk. And I said, most improved radio show co-host. As your birthday gift.
Most improved. Yes. I'm not sure what degree of improvement that was.
Well, any improvement's a good thing, isn't it?
Listening is all meaningful progress begins by listening to the truth. So listening to the show is a start.
All right. Well, who's the one person we haven't interviewed that you would love to interview? Whether this person is living, dead, achievable or attainable or not?
There's 2. Can I do one? Do you
Sure.
want one?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Do
So
2.
Dan Sullivan, strategic coach.
Okay.
He's just has been a big impact in my thinking and helped us change our thinking to grow our business. So I love his story. I'd love to have him on just so he could share it.
Okay.
And then secondly, another mentor would actually be our pastor. I go to Fellowship Church in Grapevine, Ed Young.
Sure.
And I know that's sort of counterintuitive, but it is creative, entrepreneurial, growing,
I think the term is pastorpreneur.
Yeah, pastorpreneur, and there's been some crazy stories, like when they decided to drop the Baptist and what that meant, and with the impact and how some people didn't come along with the vision, and so I think that from an entrepreneurial, I think any entrepreneur would connect with it, whether they are of the faith or not.
Well, hook us up. Get him.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I went a little different. Walt Disney.
Okay.
So he's dead. So
Did you go
obviously-
living or dead?
I went living or dead.
All right.
So Walt Disney, and I guess for me, part of the reason for Walt Disney is that he was just so far out there, and the word can't just didn't matter.
Yeah.
He went out and did just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And whether you agree with everything he did or not is not really the point. It's just he was
He's a
amazing.
visionary
Beyond belief.
Yeah.
The other one I wrote down was Richard Branson.
Yeah.
And I like Richard Branson. In fact, I'm reading his biography. My wife and I are reading it together right now. And I mean,
Is she reading it to you? Bedtime stories?
mainly when we drive on trips, but sometimes I read it to her at night too. But I love his story because he just he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
He started very young, like 15 years old, and there's something to be said for not knowing it can't be done. And then just going and doing it because you didn't know better.
Right.
But also, he wouldn't take no for an answer, and he would he'd just keep at it and keep at it and keep at it. And
So he was a petulant child, right?
yeah, I mean, I think he's a really interesting guy, and it's interesting to me how some of these, some of the big celebrity entrepreneurs like Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, they're also into the intergalactic space travel. Space as well now.
Well, they want to mine asteroids.
Well, it's amazing to me, but I hope they're able to do it.
Yeah, why not?
All right. So, what's the one thing you find that all of our guests have in common, or many of them?
Hiring. I mean, people are basically the key in almost every successful entrepreneur we have coming in. It is such a big deal of having people that have the right people in the right seats. And you just hear them talk about it all the time. Their people, their culture, their people. And it doesn't go missed on me. I mean, and I think it's something that's both art and science is what I find with a lot of successful companies is that there's, the craft and something kind of mechanical that they have to do in certain structure, but then there's also an art and a creativity to that I've noticed with a lot of the successful ones.
Yeah, they seem to be really focused on needing to hire people. So,
Danny just sent us just had a little note here, and it said they all had paper routes too.
well, yeah, paper routes and lawn mowing
business.
businesses.
Yeah.
Those are the two. We probably hear lawn mowing more than paper routes, but even paper routes are pretty big. The thing I had, as far as one thing that they all have in common, is they have a serious drive to do what they're doing. But a lot of that's also coming out of the fact that they just don't think that they're good at working for anyone else. Either they don't like it, or they don't think they're good at it, or we've had a couple of people just said, I got fired 3 times in a row, so I figured, no need for the fourth. Let's just, start a company. So, I think that self-awareness is important.
Yeah. Same subject with a twist. Who are your favorite guests? What's the DNA of your favorite guest?
Easily it's somebody who's willing to be totally open, candid, and not just come on to look good.
Yes.
They'll just be totally honest with us.
And that's honestly the feedback that I get most of the time for the from the audience. Like their favorite people, their favorite story is so counterintuitive. Is not the person that's all plastic and looks good,
Yeah.
but it's a person that will literally share the deepest breakdown and how
bad, and the ugly.
how they got through it. And I just
All
think
right.
people appreciate that.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Stick around.
Hi, my name is Fern, and I've been an empowered team member at Alkali for over 5 years. I first learned about Alkali through an online job board and was intrigued to learn that Alkali was a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider. But what captivated me was Alkali's mission statement, which is closely aligned with my own beliefs. So what's kept me at Alkali for over 5 years? First, Alkali's 5 core values match my own. Second, I've been empowered to use my unique abilities to impact our community, our clients, and Alkali. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an empowered Alkali team member, visit our website, alkaliservices.com. That's ALKALI services.com.
Welcome back to The Next Level. We're here with Bob Gibbons, Square Feet.
What else do you need?
Yeah. So, Bob,
Yes.
loaded question. Have you heard any updates from any of our guests?
Actually, I have. I actually spoke to one this afternoon.
Yes?
So James Hamill.
Yes?
So James, I've been impressed with him because, he had a business, he had his own company, but after he'd been on the show, he got contacted by somebody in Canada who I've repeated this story a few times, and I have to admit I repeated it inaccurately.
Okay.
I misunderstood what he told me. I thought that they had reached out to him to buy his company.
Huh?
It's not exactly that. It's more of a, you know how in medical practices you have a practice management company that'll help you manage your practice? Well, it's almost like that, or almost like a franchise in a way. But anyway, his company, JRH Design, or JR Hamill Construction, it's now called Allaire Homes.
Okay.
And so they have about 105 affiliates throughout their network. And so he told me today, again, he said, you can't understand what an impact you guys have had in my life. Being on the show was incredible because it was a vehicle for this company to find him that he could join. Now, he said it was really expensive for him to join, but the payoff of this has been huge because, as you grow a company, you have to add on, people like legal and HR and marketing and sales and all these other things, and it starts to bog you down, and you end up having to manage all these different things that you're really not equipped to handle.
Right.
And you're doing less and less of the business that you got in the business to do in the first place.
Right.
Well, through this group that he joined,
or whatever,
they took a lot of that off of him and allow him to focus on what he really most needs to focus on. And he said it's really been a game changer in his profits, but more importantly, in the satisfaction of his clients.
Wow.
The clients love it.
Huh.
And so he just couldn't go on enough. And of course, it wasn't the fact that he was on the show that was so great. It's just we were just the vehicle. It was
They
what
found
he
him.
said while he was on the show that really mattered.
Yeah.
That's what grabbed them.
That's cool. Yeah.
Any come to mind for you?
Just kind of fun update. So Alex Dubé founder of Door, and known forever as Door Homes, doorhomes.com, whatever. I may get the URL so wrong, but a couple big wins. So they actually have secured, they are door.com now.
Yeah. So they got the URL.
They got door.com.
Oh, I wonder what they paid for that.
I'm sure it's a great one. And then also, congratulations, because he was also Entrepreneur of the Year.
Oh,
So
nice. What was that?
I think
Through EY?
I think so, or
Okay.
maybe small business. I can't remember which one it was.
Well, a couple other updates. Mark Sinatra, Staff One, ended up selling the company to a much larger national company, and
Congratulations,
they're
Mark.
really blowing it up.
Yeah.
They, I was fortunate enough to help them relocate the company into a bigger digs, nicer digs, and
Yeah.
so they're really killing it and doing well. And he's had a baby. His wife's had a baby here recently too, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
And then Trey Rome, Home Tax Solutions, they do financing for folks that need to finance or get a loan for property taxes to avoid all the penalties and interest they have to pay to the tax man if they don't pay on time.
Wow.
Well, he's now expanded that and offers that for commercial buildings as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I saw him not too long ago, and he was talking about that, and they also will do other kinds of financing for commercial as well. So
Oh, interesting.
pretty exciting for them to be able to
Expand.
take that to a higher level.
Speaking of expanding, Vita5 guys, Nick and Garrett, they recently launched a new product that it's like a melatonin product. It's like a gummy.
Okay.
Corey's even tried them, and they gave us some, and then she actually is now a client, so I'm not sure how that works. So, but she can overcome my snoring now. But what I also thought was really cool about that story is when they got on, they were trying to figure things out, and they reached out, and we actually connected and hooked them up with Desert Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so two people, like, what a joy for me to say, hey, you know what? Totally different industries, but I know they do some stuff on Amazon. I think you guys should meet.
Have some
And
similarities.
evidently it was a really, really great meeting, and they learned so much from the experience of others. And like they said, it really, the help that the Desert Creek guys gave them really accelerated their success.
Excellent.
So,
Love hearing that.
yeah.
Anybody else come to mind?
Kevin Bonfield,
Oh, our only guest who's been on the show twice.
only guest who's been on the show twice. He's now doing speaking on legacy. I mean, literally being on the show changed the way that he saw himself and his business and the way that he went. And then he went out and did the hard work to do something about it. And
Okay.
it's been a journey. And now he's public speaking on the subject. So how crazy is that,
Good
right?
for him. He's writing books too now.
Writing books, and we're going to have also Entrepreneurs Organization Dallas. We're going to have Eccentric, which is a big regional event that's going to be coming to Dallas next year, and he is the chair for it. So,
Oh, nice.
And it's going to be on legacy. So, congrats, Kevin.
Very nice. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. What's the most surprising advice that one of our guests gave?
I can't remember who it was, but it was basically, don't go into debt, don't go all in. It was like so counterintuitive, but basically side hustle the business until you got it going on enough to do it.
So I have something similar. So it's Jeff Casinas.
Casinas, Jeff.
So
yes.
Jeff Casinas, his advice was basically don't quit your day job.
Yeah.
Side hustle it until it gets to where your current job is so annoying because you'd rather be doing the side hustle, and that your salary is just almost not inconsequential, but it's not that big a deal if you walk away from it.
Yeah.
And he designs and makes Christmas ornaments. Not
Innovations.
Christmas ornaments, but
Yeah.
Christmas innovations, ways to hang things on the mantle and
All things Christmas that are innovative.
yeah, and he does that through manufacturers in China,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother problem,
Sure.
Issues. But anyway, so I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was a great advice. I forgot it was Jeff, but I was like, man, that really stuck out to me because it's just, you got to be all in, you got to be committed, you got to, it's just, no, you don't, go sink yourself a whole bunch into debt.
Yeah.
That was good perspective.
Well, another one that sticks out to me is that we've had several people that have talked about open book management with their employees, and
Oh,
showing them the books, showing them the profits, losses, everything.
Yeah.
But Matt Monero, again, commercial fleet financing, took it to a whole different level. They would actually have their daily, what they called Scrum meetings, and they would videotape them.
Yeah.
And then post them on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so they'd be talking about everything related to the company. They didn't necessarily talk about profits and how they were charging different clients necessarily, but they would talk about everything going on in the company. And you talk about open kimono. I mean, that one, actually putting that on YouTube, and they did that forever.
Yeah.
That really blew me away.
I see it more and more. I think it's almost becoming an expectation of consumers now. I mean, I recently talked, you remember Jeff and Rishi from N08, they were guests, and they just recently did something pretty innovative. I think they use Slack to communicate on projects they're working for their clients, so they basically have given their clients full access to the communications. Like, so, hey, that code's not, I mean, so the client literally knows second by second whatever they're working on. So talk about fully transparent on what's going on behind the scenes.
But I wonder about that sometimes, and I think that's admirable, and the client's given the opportunity to do that. But I wonder how many actually do.
Oh yeah, but still, it says a lot though. I think when you're like, hey, this is how we are.
Sure.
And if there is a breakdown, you're going to know about it, like we're on it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think, the client's thinking, hey, that's why I hired you. So I don't have to do all this myself. I don't have to watch it, look at it, go to that level of detail.
Yes.
But I like the fact that, it's the attitude, the willingness to do that.
Yes.
That I think is pretty cool.
I want to know what's going on as you're picking your nose, trying to figure out which lease I'm going to select, Bob. Can you start showing me YouTube videos?
We did not need to go there at all. All right. Best quotes. We always start the show off with what we call wisdom of others. Any quotes that you found to be the best ones, the ones that were most interesting or impactful?
Two for me, and they're both kind of similar. I find that certain things resonate with me. Maybe it's the Midwest thing, but Michael Engel, he said, "There's only one way to get ahead in life, and that is to haul
ass."
Mm-hmm. And then Alex Dubé from Door.
Okay.
Again, the harder I work, the luckier I get, and he attributed to Mark Twain and a bunch of other people, but it was the quote he brought on, and I think that just resonates with me so much because I feel like I've been a product of a lot of unexpected things, doors that have opened just by just working hard, trying to do the right thing, the right way, and things have popped up that we've been able to capitalize on. But I don't know if I wasn't working hard and trying to do the right things that it would open. So it resonated with me, and I think, not to make a statement on culture, but I think that there's a lot of people that just kind of expect things instantly and don't want to work hard for them anymore. And
right.
So those meant something to me. What about you?
Quick results. Yeah, the two, I came up with two quotes as well. The first one was Burt Copeland, who was quoting his brother.
That's convicting.
And his brother said, "You are today the father your kids will remember forever."
Yes.
And that was very convicting. I wish somebody had said that to me when my kids were young. I've had to go back and apologize to my kids, and now that they're grown a few times on various issues that I've remembered that I handled incorrectly when they were growing up. But yeah, I mean there ought to be a class on how to be a father, how to be a mother, and that you have to take before you actually become one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the way biology works. The other quote that I liked is Michael Patton. Of Fetch, his quote was, "Nobody cares, work harder." And the thing I liked about
another one to add to my list here. Yeah.
Well, it's similar to yours because it's really all about you got to just get after it, do it, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, nobody really cares what the reason was that something worked or didn't work.
Right.
Just get it done.
Yeah.
Clients don't want to hear your excuses; they just want to hear that their project was successful.
Sure.
And so, you know what? We'll. I gotta work harder. Every day.
We can all do it, right?
All right. We'll be back in just a minute.
Stick around.
My name is Stephen Bohannon. I'm the founder of Alchemy, but I don't know that any amount of magic can turn this show into gold.
All right, we're back. Next Level Show. Stephen, what's the most surprising thing that you've found about having started this show?
how good we would get.
No. I'm being serious.
Truthfully, like I didn't know this, probably because I was so scared and wouldn't listen to the first 8 shows, but how fun and how much joy this show would bring to me for such an extended period of time.
Okay.
My personality is, after I've done something for a while, I tend to lose interest. I really look forward to it every week. And for doing that 3 years with your mug, I'm just kidding.
You got to love it. I think one of the most surprising thing to me is, when we started the show, we had certain expectations in mind, and those haven't all come through, of course. The thing that I found most surprising, we moved it from a half an hour show to an hour show about 5 or 6 months ago. And, I was really worried about how are we going to fill that time. I was very nervous about how we're going to do that. Even though when we were in a half hour show, it seemed like we didn't get to a lot of stuff we wanted to talk about.
Right.
But I was still nervous. And actually, I still walk away from the interviews saying the exact same thing. I wish we had more time to talk to this person, because it is a lot more comfortable. I do feel like we get a lot more depth and talk about things to a greater degree.
Agreed.
And get much better content as a result of it.
Yes.
So I was very surprised and so now it's a lot more relaxing.
Yes.
And I think it's a better show because of that. So that's one big thing. The stories we get back from the guests, about how the show has impacted them, has been good. I mean, even if they don't get a ton of calls saying, "Hey, I want your services," a lot of times they tell us, the process, filling out the pre-interview questions that we ask them, makes them stop and think and really think through how they got to where they are, why they got to where they are, et cetera. And a lot of them are so busy doing what they're doing, they don't
even celebrate their success a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
It's like kind of cool.
So I like that. I think that has a great impact on them.
What's most difficult for you, or what has been?
Dealing with you.
Clearly, I keep waiting for this thing to become the Bob Gibbons show, right?
Well, I mean, the things that are most difficult, quite honestly, our numbers are not what I want them to be as far as listeners. I mean, we can't tell how many people are listening to the show itself on the terrestrial radio, but if you look at our views, downloads on the podcast, YouTube, I mean, just being totally honest, they're not what I'd like them to be. I'd like them to be a lot bigger. And because I think the guests that we have on are so powerful and so great, and they have such good advice, I think it could be helpful to so many more people. And so, I could sit here and say selfishly, I want that for some selfish reason, but it's really more for the impact that it could have on a greater number of people that I would like to see.
Agreed.
Those numbers far greater than they are.
Yeah, we're just waiting for someone with the right unique ability to come and kind of help us with that.
Working on it.
Yes. For me, I would say this last year especially has been time. It's just the time. We've got this down so well, and it is just a conversation, so it requires much less concerted effort than it did in the early days, and so it's much more natural, like you said, and conversational and free flowing, which is all great. But we in the last year have been through some significant change, exciting change, that sometimes creeps and creates disruption to what we're trying to do here. So,
well, one other thing about the show that is interesting is that even though we're not selling anything here, most radio show hosts that have a once a week show have something to sell,
right?
And we don't have anything to sell. We're just trying to help people and feature these great guests that volunteer their time to come on the show, but just like in a sales organization where you have to have certain sales, we have to have guests.
Yeah.
And so we have to have guests in the pipeline, like in a company, they have to have prospects and customers in the pipeline. And so when we get a little lazy and, sometimes we'll get our pipeline full and it feels like, hey, we got everybody booked for the next 2 months and we kind of,
put our head down, work on other things.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden we look up and it's like, oh crap, we got a show next week and don't have somebody for it.
Yeah.
And then we start scrambling. And so it, that just shows me, I don't care what you're working on, you got to have a certain discipline
Yes.
to keep the pipeline full, whether that's going out with friends.
Yep.
One of the unexpected guests that we had that said something unexpectedly was Mike at Ignite Partnership.
Covert.
And so Mike Covert had told us that one of the things that he messed up when he started his company was his personal friendships. And he was so focused on his company, and he was all into the company, but it came at the expense of his friends.
Yeah.
And so one of his big to-dos for that year was to reconnect with all of his friends and reestablish those relationships. And so you got to have a pipeline for everything, right? You got to have it for your friends. You got to have it for your family.
Your weekly date night?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's important to do in all things.
Yes. So what looking forward? What's going on with you? Over the next year, what's happening with Riata? What with you? Where are you going?
Well, for Riata, we want to hire some agents, so we'd like to hire a few more agents to work with us. And we're being careful and slow about that, though, because while our business is a commission-only business, and therefore you could argue, well, it doesn't, we can hire 10 people and they're commission only, so that's not going to cost you anything, right? Well, wrong, because every person that comes on requires training, attention. It takes time to recruit them and find them, get them up and running. If they haven't had a background in real estate, and especially in the corporate real estate services, tenant rep that we do, it takes a lot of training. And so that time is time that I could be spending doing something else, earning more money on my own without them here. So there's not a big opportunity cost when those people show up. So hiring more agents is something we want to do, but we just got to be very careful and disciplined about that so we don't make mistakes like we have done in the past.
Sure.
And so we'll see how that turns out. Continuing to say no. I've talked about this many times. So, part of my problem is, when somebody calls up and says, I want you to do X, even though if X is not really what we ought to be doing, I want to help people.
Yeah.
But
like when I called you and said, hey, I want to be on the radio show with you, Bob.
what was I thinking?
No. Should have said no.
So then the other thing I'm going to put down is smarter marketing. And I say smarter because I need to always be reevaluating what I'm doing and making sure that it's resulting in what we need and expect. And when it doesn't, then we need to cut it, even if it's something that's comfortable and I like doing. Who cares if I like doing it? If it's not resulting in what we need, then I need to stop doing it.
Gotcha.
So what does your next 12 months look like? I hate to even ask this question.
What's that?
I hate to almost ask this question of you.
Oh, man.
Given your last 12 months.
Yeah, well, in the last 12 months, we've tripled as an organization. And so that's more team members, more real estate, more people we got to get integrated and working together on a single process and building trust and all those types of things. And so that's certainly enough just to do that. We've got some world-class people and talent and some capabilities that have joined us. And so how do we really get everybody working together for the mutual benefit of our clients? Instead of working each individually as in silos. And so that is a big one. Hopefully getting into a new space will be one, and then hopefully probably maybe doubling again.
So the one thing that strikes me interesting about that is that your growth is coming from acquisitions.
And organic.
Yeah. But, probably faster on the acquisitions than organic.
Sure.
And so my question to you is, because you're growing both organically and through acquisition, do you find it much more difficult to integrate somebody into your culture through acquisition or through just hiring somebody who's experienced but just joining your firm for the first time?
I feel like we've gotten better. So I don't know I can say that it's one way or the other. I would say that we've gotten better at hiring people that our culture and core values fit. And so in identifying when that's working and when that's not. In an acquisition, people have been operating and doing things a certain way, the way they have their own culture and core values. We know they're valuable team members. We want to keep people. I mean, that's why we do these things, right? But it's a little bit of a different process. And so I don't know that we have candidly gotten good at that process yet. And so we're going through some of those growing pains, and we're learning a lot. So if you ask me that, my hope a year from now or 2 years is that I could say, well, they're equal, they're just different. Right now, I'd say organic and hiring off the street we're better at, but that's just because we have spent years really, really focusing on that.
Yeah.
And so all those years are helping, but it's just a little bit different. It's just a little bit different animal. And so I think we'll get better. I'm really confident, and I feel like overall it's going really well. And of course, we're not just acquiring for the sake of acquiring. We are trying to align on core values as much as possible before we make the acquisition, because we feel like that's really key to continue the organic growth, not just to buy the growth.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
How do we make 1 + 1 = 3?
It's always the goal, isn't it? So, looking at the show, what about the show for the next year? Anything there?
You know, I haven't nailed it down, Bob. I mean, honestly, you know, like I know this is a question you want to ask, but I personally haven't nailed it down. I feel like we're really close. I mean, there's like a stirring in me that I know that there's something kind of that is a next level to the next level, but I don't have complete clarity around it. But I just kind of have like a good feeling that something's around the corner, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, recently, my brother-in-law came in from Texas Tech, and my wife was out of town, and we had this opportunity. Are we at the buzzer?
We are.
All right. Well, a bunch of next levelers got together and just gave their time to a 20-year-old and shared some of their experiences. And literally, I really think that they might have made a lifelong impact on them. So just
Nice.
little things like that happening just makes me feel like we're a part of something great, and there's something bigger. I just don't know what it is. How about you?
You know, there's a lot of things that I want to do, and I think we have to be a more, you know, this show, it shows up on the radio, on YouTube, on podcast, on our own website, and
nextlevelshow.com.
that's right. So we need to start thinking about how to present it differently in each of those contexts that are appropriate to each of those forums instead of one size fits all. So obviously there's a lot
More
for us
work.
to talk about and more work. But anyway, thanks to our listeners. We really appreciate y'all being with us. Please subscribe on our podcast and on YouTube. Search The Next Level Show. And we'll be back next week with some real guests.
Work harder. Have a great week.
Nobody cares.